As I was growing up, as a young toddler, being surrounded with family and friends all the time who loved me and supported me and accepted me obviously for who I was and what I was, I didn't know and didn't even realize that I was different to everybody else. I mean, I looked different, I knew that, I'm sure I knew that, but I didn't think it was such a big deal because I knew that I was just like everybody else, just looked different. And I guess the first time where my mum tells me that I realised that I was different to everybody else was when I went to kindergarten. And on my first day, she said I just cried and cried and cried and didn't want to go the next day because all the kids would tease me and point their finger at me and laugh at me and reject me, and I felt very much alone when I went to kindergarten. And I always had support from my parents and my family always to just know that I was special. Everybody told me, Nick, that's okay, you're just special. I didn't want to be special, you know, I wanted just to be like everybody else. And as I went through school, I learned how to do things like everybody else, like write with my foot and type with my foot. As I grew up, I started asking questions to mum and dad, knowing that now I was different to everybody else, and people asked me, what happened? And I didn't know. You know, I couldn't give any answers. I say, well, it just happened. I mean, we don't know. And I really got upset sometimes because there were no answers. And every time I asked my mum and dad, you know, why did this happen? And they saw the distress in my heart. They saw the frustration I had in me. And all they could say was, only God knows. Only God knows. You know, the doctors couldn't give any answers. There was no medical explanation for it. My mum was in fact a nurse back then and delivered many babies before I was born, and she knew exactly what to do and what not to do when she was pregnant with me. And so she took even precautions. She actually, in her testimony in my book that's coming, she actually had a premonition that something was going to happen in her first pregnancy. And so she didn't even take Panadol when she was having a headache or anything like that, you know, painkillers or anything like that. So she just made sure that everything that she did was fine. And just happened. We don't know. And there were 3 ultrasounds done, and the miracle is that no one found out that I had no arms and no legs until I was actually born. So in the ultrasounds, they just thought that I was in a particular position where they just couldn't see my arms and legs, but they believed that they were there because we take it for granted every baby is born with arms and legs. So when I was born, my parents' reactions were obviously just shock. I mean, they had no warning, and everybody was saying everything was fine, and they were expecting a beautiful, you know, young, healthy boy, which they did. They got a young, healthy, beautiful boy. I'm beautiful, but just with a few parts missing, and it was just such a great tragedy. Really, my parents back then were very strong Christians and are still today, and my dad was in fact one of the pastors of our church back then. And it was just such a really testing point in their faith as well. And not just their lives, but it was a big test for the church, you know, asking God why. Why would God let that happen? You know, if he says in the Bible that I formed you in your mother's womb, that he has a hope and future for everybody, then what was God thinking when he made Nick Vujicic? And it was just such a big thing, and to have a firstborn child or a husband and wife, it is life-changing. But even more so when they have a disability, I believe it was just something that was, you know, that they just had a fear of inadequacy. You know, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with this boy? Is he going to, you know, what kind of life is he going to live? My dad actually initially thought that I was just going to die, but they found out that no, I have everything else is working fine, and I was going to live. And they were going through many stages, stages of denial. Sometimes thinking, no, this is not happening. You know, this is just a nightmare. You know, they thought that any moment now they're going to wake up from this nightmare. And my parents went to doctor to doctor to doctor, and just tried to find out and trying to reason with this and trying to just comprehend what happened. And for some reason we want to have that comfort of just understanding the situation. And they were looking for an answer, and no one had any answers. And there are many times in our life where we are looking for answers and we don't get them. Sometimes we will not get some answers. And this is where we walk by faith and trust in God. And my parents realized this, that hey, this is my son and my own flesh and blood, and God has blessed me with this child, and He's going to give me sufficient grace to raise him with wisdom, with grace, with compassion and with love, just as if I had arms and legs. Because God does have a reason for everything. But it took several months for them to come to that stage of peace, and where they could fully commit all that I am to Jesus Christ and for His purpose. I am just so thankful and grateful to God for giving me such awesome parents. Yes, he's been giving them grace. Yes, it's only because of Him that they managed to overcome it and get through one day at a time. But I'm just so thankful that they are in my life, because if they weren't there, I would have given up a long time ago. Especially at school, when people did tease me, I was trying to find my identity at school and trying to find my friends. And see, a lot of people at first, when they see me, they don't know if I have a mental disability. They don't know to what extent they can have a conversation with me, what depth and all that sort of thing. So they don't know how to approach me. They sort of avoid me. But once I open up my mouth and they see that, I'm just like everybody else, they warm up to you. And you just crank that smile up, and they're like, hey, this guy's cool, sort of thing. So basically my parents, when I was discouraged at school, my parents just encouraged me to just talk to people, because that was the key, to show everybody that I was just like everybody else. And it was very hard. It was very hard to at times take that leap of faith, take that courage, and I believe that's only by the grace of God that I had that courage to step out and just make friends and try to blurt out all the negative comments that were coming in day by day. And I know how it feels to be put down by people every day. But I also know how impacting some people's encouragement was in my life. And that's why I have a passion today to reach out to the youth, primary school and high school, to not judge those. And I mean, even as adults, we judge people, we stereotype people just by the way they look. And it's wrong. It's wrong. Jesus died for them too. God loves them as much as He loves you. Why should we put anyone down? It's not right. And it's not how you look, it's who you are. And that's what I've seen in my life. And that's the truth. That God looks on the inside, that He has a special plan for each and every one of us. And the last thing I would hate to know in my life is that I was teasing somebody and that my words crushed them. We just joke when we're teasing at school. When we're teasing people at school, we're just mucking around, we're just kidding. But deep down, we know how hurtful it can be. Eventually, my confidence grew and grew, day by day, having the support of my family and now having my friends beside me. I started to believe that I was like everybody else. I started to believe that my life was worth living. There were many times where I didn't feel like life was worth living. But this confidence grew and grew, and I praise Jesus that He gave me that comfort through the struggles. But gaining respect from students, I also realized that I had a gift for speaking, and a lot of people looked up to me in many ways. And I was voted by the school, the students there, to be school captain of my primary school, and vice school captain of my high school. And so I was very well known by many students and was friends with everybody, you know, Nick loves everybody, that sort of thing.